Okay. All right. We will start with our blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Hello, everybody. Welcome. So good to see you. Hello, Cindy, and hello, Janice. It's great to have you. So today, next Wednesday, I'll just tell you we will not be having class because it will be Shushan Purim. Shushan Purim is day 2 of Purim that is celebrated by those who live in Jerusalem or in any city that was walled at the time of the conquest of the land of Israel. So next Wednesday night, we'll be actually celebrating Purim, even though the rest of the country will have it on, and the rest of the Jewish world will have it on Monday night and Tuesday. So can you all hear me? I see some pictures are frozen, but you can hear Elisa? Okay, so hopefully, Marcia, can you hear? Is everyone's okay? If you can just put your, I don't know, I guess your site is, oh, and hello, Linda. Nice to see you. Okay, I'm going to carry on and hope that we're connected. Okay, so to prepare for Purim, first of all, I feel like I live on the most magical street for Purim celebration. It would be an ideal place to have a Purim carnival just on my street, because my street is Mordechai HaYehudi, Mordechai the Jew, and at the end of the street is Esther HaMalka. Esther the Queen. So they intersect like this, and this the street doesn't go all the way through, so it's a very quiet street. It would be perfect to be closed off for a Purim celebration, but they're not doing that. However, I love getting on the bus because Esther HaMalka is one of the stops for the buses. So they announce it and they say Derech Chevron, which is Chevron Road, Esther HaMalka. So every single time we get on the bus and we're coming back, we always hear them say, Esther HaMalka, Esther the Queen. And I'm like, oh, would she even ever believe if she could be alive today and realize that there's a street named after her and that it's being called out on the bus as a bus stop for people to get off, and this is where we get off. And so it's pretty funny. Anyway, this is a perfect Purim scenario for us. So I want to talk about Purim, and what I want to talk about first of all is, I don't know how many of you maybe grew up with an idea of Purim that it was, let's see, well, let me ask you, when you were growing up, if you grew up Jewish and you had Purim, of what you grew up thinking Purim was, what it was celebrating, if it was like where it was on the scale of importance of Jewish holidays. What was it? Feel free to unmute and say if you can hear me, the question. Elisa, how did you grow up with?
My family was, I grew up with just dressing up sometimes and not even going to synagogue, just going to a party and knowing the story, but not knowing what the mitzvot, not knowing the deeper meaning of the story.
Okay, great. Okay, that sounds very common. Anybody else have an experience growing up with Purim, of what you grew up with, of what it was, how it ranked as a holiday, significance? Did you ever hear like it was a minor holiday, that Purim is a minor holiday? So it's like, this is what we grew up with. Purim is a minor holiday. In fact, it's kind of billed as being primarily for children. Children dress up, you go to the Megillah reading, there's lots of noise, you get the candy, you're in your costumes, that's a whole big thing. And that was really Purim. So what's fascinating to really know is that Purim is considered the highest holiday, and the holiday that in the future will not be changed, that it goes above even a holiday that is very similar to it, that we also call a very high holiday. In fact, we refer to it as the high holidays. And the high holidays are Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And Yom Kippur specifically is called Yom HaKippurim. Yom Kippur, Yom HaKippurim, that is called the Shabbat Shabbaton, the Shabbos of Shabboses. It's like the highest level holiday. and yet it's called Yom HaKippurim, the one that is Kippurim, the one that is like Purim. Now, whenever you compare something and you say that something is like something else, the thing that is like something else is the secondary thing. It's the facsimile thereof. It says that Yom Kippur is Kippurim. It is like Purim. Purim is the higher holiday, and Yom Kippur is the lower holiday. So what we're going to look at today is, why is that true? And how can we enjoy this holiday and get more out of it and more out of our month of Adar? So when we celebrate Yom Kippur, I know it seems like a really long time ago, but what were we celebrating? It says the Yom Kippur is called the Day of Atonement. And the Day of Atonement, we have gone through a 40-day process, starting with Rosh Chodesh Elul, the first month of Elul and first day of the month of Elul. And it commemorates Moses going back up onto Mount Sinai to get the full forgiveness for the sin of the golden calf, and then coming down with the second set of tablets, having broken the first set of tablets following the sin of the golden calf. So what is Yom Kippur? Yom Kippur is a day of atonement, and for the sin of the golden calf, and then for the future, for all other kind of mistakes and errors and things that we do wrong for the rest of eternity. That's Yom Kippur, but it is also the day of receiving the Torah. So we received the Torah because we received the second set of the tablets we received on Yom Kippur. So it is both a day of forgiveness and receiving of the Torah. But the question is, what's the mood? What was the mood of Yom Kippur? Like we talked about, that it was 40 days of doing teshuvah for having participated with the golden calf. So most of us would say that Yom Kippur, I don't know, I would say if you go into the synagogue, what's the mood of Yom Kippur? Dancing and singing and costumes and partying. If you go to that kind of a Yom Kippur service, you're probably in the wrong synagogue, okay? You're the wrong religion, because that's not what it is at all. Yom Kippur is very solemn, even though it's joyful because we have forgiveness and we're getting the second tablets, but it's coming from the place on the side, and I'm not going to translate it exactly because it's called Yira. And Yira is often translated as fear, but we're going to talk about it from a place of awe and reverence and the desire to correct what we have done wrong. And that's the place of Yira, and that is the mood of Yom Kippur. So we do have joy on Yom Kippur, but it's coming from a different place. What's the mood on Purim? It says the mood on Purim is feasting and dancing and singing and celebration. And yet it is also a day of teshuvah. It is also a day of repentance. And it's also a day of receiving the Torah. How do we understand that? It says, what did we have to repent for, to do teshuvah for at the time of Purim? So one thing might come to mind, which was that the Jewish people bowed to Haman's idol. That Haman wore an idol around him, and the Jewish people bowed to it. So that was problem number one. The second problem was they went to Ahasuerus's feast and they enjoyed themselves because they were so assimilated and so disconnected from their identity that they just kind of fell into the whole pattern of being with the people of Persia. And those were the two main sins, the two main things that they had to fix. They fixed those things and they are saved in the Purim miracle. It says that was the cause of Haman being able to even be effective in casting lots and having a day that was going to be the destruction of the Jewish people. The only reason he was successful doing that was because the Jewish people were already in a deficient place. What does this tell us? But what did the Jewish people do? So we said for Yom Kippur that 40 days before Yom Kippur, starting Rosh Chodesh Elul, we start blowing the shofar, we start saying slichot, we start doing all these things to get ready for the high holidays. So what do we do 40 days before Purim to get ready to do teshuvah before Purim? It says absolutely nothing. We do nothing. We don't do anything to get ready. It's like, well, how does that work? It's like, where does that come from? So it's really coming from a place that we're accessing a different aspect of our relationship with God, that we're accessing the unconditional love, the unconditional, not from the place of yira, not from a place of awe, but from the place of complete unconditional love, that no matter what we do, this is like when the child has like completely gone totally off the rails and they are like so doing everything wrong, and they think their parent's not going to love them anymore. And the parent says, I love you no matter what, because you are my child. I love you no matter what. It's unconditional. It says that unconditional love is the love of Purim. And it's that we are celebrating. It says, what does unconditional love feel like? It says, what does unconditional love feel like? Is it feels like we're elated. And it's then that we realize that we really have an incredible, special relationship with the infinite creator of the universe. This is the love of Purim. This is the celebration of Purim. And love is always higher than awe. It says that a relationship that is based on love is higher than a relationship that is based on awe. When we have awe that comes along with love, that's the ideal, but the love is supposed to be higher. So in any of our intimate relationships, if your intimate relationship is not primarily fueled by love rather than awe, that's not a good relationship. There is an aspect of the awe which keeps us in line because we don't want to disappoint. We don't want to do something that would damage the relationship, but the relationship itself needs to be based on love. So this is what we are celebrating. So this is the source of the simcha that we have, the joy that we have on Purim comes from this love relationship. How do we celebrate it? We celebrate it by eating and drinking. The opposite of Purim, the opposite of Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, what do? We fast. So here's how they go together though. On Purim, on Yom Kippur, we have a feast before the fast. We have a feast before the Yom Kippur starts, and then we go into the fast. On Purim, we have a fast first, and then we have the feast. And so together, they bring together the whole package. Feasting and fasting are both part of the relationship, but which one comes, what's the main part of it? On Yom Kippur, the main part is the fasting, and on Purim, the main part is the feasting. And with that feasting is to celebrate the love relationship that we have. When we think about Esther Hamalka, our street, says Esther we know because there's a wonderful organization that is named for Esther's other name. And it's funny, I always wonder if anybody is a member of Hadassah and knows how they decided to call the organization Hadassah instead of Esther, because the organization was founded on Purim. That's why it has that name to begin with. So I'm not sure what caused one thing versus the other. But then the question is, why does it say that Esther's name was also Hadassah? So there are two things. One is the word Hadass or Hadassah, you might recognize from your lulav and etrog. When you take the lulav and etrog and you have all of the different pieces of it that go together, there's one part in there, one of the things that is in there is the Hadass. And the Hadass is the myrtle. It's really good her name's not Myrtle, like no offense, but I think Hadassah sounds better than Myrtle. So Hadass is the one that smells really sweet. It says, and this was Esther. Everyone found her, it said that she had chaim, that everyone liked her. They didn't even know why they liked her, but they did. And when they found that they had that connection with her, and they said that that's one of the reasons they called her Hadassah, that they called her that because she had this fragrance, this grace and charm about her that allowed her and enabled her to make connections and relationships within the palace and to find favor in everybody's eyes, including the evil Achashverosh. And even Haman, until the tide turns against him. But everyone loved her. The other description that is given about her for Hadassah is it says that her complexion was the color of Hadassah, and that she was green. So some say, there's like interesting commentary, she was green because she kept kosher in the palace, and so all she ate were green vegetables. So they just called her that. They just called her kind of like greenie. We'll call you that because all you eat you're a coat. All you're eating are green vegetables. And so we call you Hadassah because you're green in that way. But the other it says that the color green, and think about it from an art perspective. Hold on one second, excuse me. Green, I didn't even realize I was kind of wearing green, but it's more bluish green. It says green is a very soothing color. It's a very balanced color. It represents the combination of blue, which is very calm, and yellow, which is like bright, like hot, like the sun. So yellow and blue together, which makes green. It says that this represents a balance of personality, of what gave her the ability, what was behind her sweetness, that enabled her to be comfortable, she wasn't comfortable, to be comfortable with different people in an environment that was really that was a foreign environment to her. It says that we should learn to be green like Esther. It says it's great to be passionate and it's great to be calm, but the best is to be balanced between the two of them and to be green and to have that quality of Esther that allowed her to solve problems and to save the Jewish people. Sometimes we think you have to be like all one thing or the other, just calm down, or you just need more passion. It says it's a beautiful mixture, a beautiful recipe for success is to be green like Esther. So one year I did for our Shalach Manas, I did the Starbucks, because it's green, their logo is green. And so instead of saying Starbucks, I said Starbucks. Anyway, that was my little attempt at some humor. But this greenness was the quality of Esther that allowed her to function in the court. Interestingly, Esther comes from the tribe of Benjamin, and Benjamin is the son of Rachel. Rachel had this quality also, and one of Rachel's other descendants also had this quality, and that was Joseph. Joseph also had this quality that everywhere he went, even when he was in prison and he was in such a foreign environment, everyone loved him. It says, what was it about him? It says it was the quality of Rachel, that Rachel had this ability, this chen, this grace that endeared her to other people. So it's interesting that those two people, both Joseph and Esther, find themselves in foreign palaces and find themselves as part of foreign governments and find themselves in places of power and to be able to affect change. So we sometimes wonder, what does it take to really navigate in this world? I think our world could use a lot more green as we see things, that there's maybe not so much balance that we can work toward. Finding that at the time of Purim. So Purim is about having that balance of passion and the calm, not all blue, not all yellow, but the beautiful green combination that she brings to it. Okay, Esther, Purim, and Yom Kippur. Says, what else can we learn about Purim and about the month of Adar? Says the month of Adar can be read as a combination of two words, or a letter and a word. Aleph, which is the first letter of the word Adar, and Dar. It says Aleph Dar. It says, what does that mean? Aleph Dar. So Aleph says is a reference to God, like the one. Aleph is equal to one. Like God is one, Aleph, one. God, Dar means to dwell. The one dwells with us. A dira in Hebrew is an apartment, and it comes from the word dar. The etrog is called a pre-eitz hadar. The fruit, it's translated as the goodly tree, but one of the explanations about what makes it goodly is that the fruit stays on the tree from one season to the next. So you could see at the Botanic Gardens in Denver, they have an etrog tree. I think they just trimmed it all off, but when I was there last summer, you could see the etrog tree, and on the etrog tree were etrogs that were about 6 inches long, like they were ginormous. There were little ones, and there were flowers. There was like everything at the same time. And it was kind of like Lador Vador. It was like from generation to generation, the etrog tree had a pre-eitz hadar, the fruit of the tree that stays on, that dwells in, that stays on the tree forever. Doesn't like fall off like all the apples, whatever. Everything else always falls off. But the etrog doesn't until it's picked. So it's this idea of dar says Adar, that in the month of Adar, that we recognize that Hashem is dwelling inside of us. That this is the ultimate source of happiness and joy for us, is that God is inside of me, that I'm not God, but that Hashem is inside of me, and I have a relationship, and it's unconditional love, and that makes me really happy. And when I'm that happy, we celebrate that. We celebrate that with goodies, with snacks, with a su'uda, a festive meal, to celebrate that relationship that we're having at Purim. So now we're starting to kind of get an idea about why Purim is considered even higher than Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, and this was phrased, I'm sorry, I went to 2 separate shiurim, 2 different classes about this, beautiful classes. One said that on Yom Kippur, we ask the question, what did I do wrong? And that's what we say, right? Al chet shechatanu, for the sin that we sinned for doing this, that, or the other thing. What did I do wrong? That's the question for Yom Kippur. The question on Purim is, how can I make it better? That is a totally different question. How can I make it better? Because that's talking about the love aspect of a relationship. So we've all probably had relationships where we've made mistakes with one another and have been in a position of needing to apologize. I'm so sorry I stepped on your toe. I'm so sorry I made that comment. I'm so sorry I didn't, return the call, whatever it might be. That's a Yom Kippur statement question. But the Purim question is, what can I do to show you how much I love you? How can I make it better? Can I go get something for your foot? Can we make a special date because I want you to know how much I really care about you, how much you mean to me? That's different. You kind of need both, but the other one is really the one that enhances the relationship. The Yom Kippur just kind of gets things back to status quo. Okay, there's a forgiveness and like we're let bygones be bygones kind of a thing. But Purim is, how do we take this to the next level? How do we make it even better? And that is a place, is like, if somebody has ever done that for you or with you, or you've done that with someone, it usually results in tears and hugs, because there's such a sense of joy and happiness about reconnecting with somebody by somebody saying, I want to make this relationship even better. Not, I just don't want you to be mad at me and I'm sorry I did something wrong. That's already great, but to go to the next level of how can I make this better because you mean so much to me. People even say that even if there's not a fight, even if there isn't a distance between people, that just asking somebody in your life, what's one thing I could do that would make our relationship even better? People do this in the work world. What's one thing I could do in the coming year that would make me even a stronger employee, a more valuable asset to the firm, whatever it might be? That question is not a question that places blame. It's a question that opens up possibility for a relationship to go to a higher level. It says, what could I do? What's one thing? Not like, remake yourself as a person, but what's one thing I could do that would make this better? You can ask this of a child. You can ask this of a spouse. You can ask this of a friend, of a colleague. This question can be asked to anybody. And most people will be so surprised that it was even asked that in and of itself will open up the relationship, because they'll be surprised by that opening. This is the opening on Purim. So what's great about Purim is that we have a script to kind of help make this happen. And that's the script of Shalach Manos, of Mishloach Manot, of sending people a little gift. It's not an I'm sorry gift. This isn't like the new, when everybody sends out on Facebook or their WhatsApp chats before Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. I just want to say I'm sorry to anybody that I've offended. Well, first of all, that sorry doesn't even count for anything. It's a nice gesture, but it doesn't really do anything. But even if it was personally, I'm sorry for anything I did. It's like, okay. So you want to I want to erase the problem. But Purim comes to say, even if there's not a problem, I'm giving you this and you don't even need it. This is something that is bonus extra. This is just purely an expression of my love and concern and happiness that I'm in the relationship with you. And that's all it is on one hand, and yet that's everything. The ability to do that with other people, it says this creates unity amongst the Jewish people, unity in families, friends, communities, all of it. And it's achieved through such a simple way so that it doesn't have to be embarrassing. I think whenever there's a Jewish script for something, it saves people from, number one, having to come up with something really unique and creative and how they're going to do it. And number two, excuse me. It keeps people from being embarrassed. Like, oh, it's so awkward. Like, I'm going to go up to somebody and say, well, what can I do to improve our relationships? Like, that's so embarrassing. I don't think I even have the nerve to say that. But it's not embarrassing to give somebody shalach manas, to go get, I don't know what, a piece of fruit and some nuts or cookies and a soft drink or a cup of coffee and a donut and say, I just wanted to tell you I love you and happy Purim. It's like, it makes it smooths the way for people to come together and to connect in a way that is meaningful and creates happiness and unity amongst the Jewish people. It says, this is the path. This is how we handle Purim so that we can celebrate and really enjoy. But here's the clincher, is that you don't have to save this for Purim, that Purim can be just the beginning of doing things like this. And then it can become, because all of our holidays are not meant just to be observed on the day that we observe them, but are meant to be lessons and a workshop for how to live our life on a regular basis. So doing these kinds of, some people call them random acts of kindness, doing that kind of thing for people is a way to build relationship. There is so much fracture in our families, in our communities, in our nation here, in the land of Israel, the United States, everywhere. I don't know what the other answer is. And it's probably a really good idea to give shalach manas to somebody who you disagree with about a lot of things. You don't agree with their politics. You don't agree with, their religious beliefs. You don't agree with their whatever it might be, how they spend their money, where they go on vacation, whatever it might be, of something to say the relationship with you is more important than all of that. Because if we are saying that God is saying to us on Purim, I don't really care what you did, I love you anyway. There is a place, and I'm not talking about, abusive relationships and things like that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just regular garden variety relationships. There's a place to say, my relationship with you is what's most important to me. And I don't have answers for the other things, and maybe we can or cannot talk about them. I don't know. It may be something we can't talk about, but I just want you to know that I love you, and that the essence of who we are is deeper than any political belief we hold, and is deeper than any religious belief that we hold, and that this is a place where we can come together. So when the Jews of Shushan, I mean, as we say about Hitler, Yimach Shemo, his name should be obliterated along with everybody else who tries to destroy us. He didn't really care who the Jews were, what they did, if they were upstanding citizens, if they were criminals. He didn't care what kind of a Jew we were. He wanted to murder all of them, as did Haman. It wasn't that he was just after the rabbis or just after the, scum of the earth. It was all of us, all of us. So when our enemies can have that place of like, no, we mean everybody all together, the antidote to that, the only antidote that we have ever had, has been for us to say the same thing. No, we mean everybody. We mean everybody. I would love to see all the different protests, everything that's going on. If everybody would just gather together and give each other shalach manas, I think we could all sit down and work things out. But we're not there yet. Maybe we'll be there by next Tuesday. That's what I'm praying for. So this is the message of Adar, and this is the place that gives us the simcha, that gives us the joy and happiness, that is a choice for how we're going to experience the world, how we're going to experience the people in our world, and the situations that we encounter, is to find the place of joy and happiness where we can enter into a different dimension rather than sinking down to the lowest common denominator that exists in our world. I was always reading, news about Israel and everything else all the time, even before coming here. And now, of course, I read it even more than I should. And what can I say? You could get very concerned and very worried and very freaked out. And then you look and see all the amazing things that are happening. Also, it's like, well, which thing do you want to think about? You get to choose. You get to choose where your mind is. So we've said this before, but just to reiterate, that the word simcha is understood to be a contraction of two words: sham, meaning there, and moach, meaning mind. There is your mind. And the question is, where's there? Where is our mind? On what are we going to put our attention and put our mind's effort onto? What are we going to think about? And that's going to be the source of our simcha. So we can choose. I'm reading a wonderful book, and I'm just going to go get it for you and hold it up because it's so amazing. Let's see if I have it. No, I don't have it out here. Sorry. But I'm going to tell you what it's called. It's called The Positivity Bias. The Positivity Bias. And a friend of ours bought us this book. It's based on the teachings of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, who had a very, very difficult life. From the Holocaust, losing family, all sorts of things in his life. And he made it as his life's work to be oriented towards that which is positive. And he said he did it, otherwise he would have gone insane. So it wasn't because his life was easy, it was because his life was hard that he chose to be biased toward the positive. It says that being biased toward the positive is not escapism, it is the ultimate realism, that there is always something positive to be able to focus on if we expand our perspective widely enough. So I think I shared with you last week that we were hoping to get the keys to our apartment on Tuesday, and we did not. So there was a delay with the building, and so it's been rescheduled for Sunday. So hopefully that happens. So it was very, very disappointing. And as I shared with you, one of the reasons I really wanted it to happen is that yesterday was the Yortzeit and the birthday of Moshe Rabbeinu, of Moses, our teacher. And I thought that's so perfect for my story. It fit in with my narrative that our apartment overlooks the part of Jordan where Joshua and Moses stood on the other side with the Jewish people. Yes, I sure can. I will write the name of the book. It's called The Positivity. I'll write it down. Let's see, I'm not sure. I'll write it down at the end because I don't think I can talk and type at the same time, or maybe somebody else can type it in the chat for everyone. It's called The Positivity Bias. So I was so excited. I thought this is just going to be the perfect thing. We're going to get the keys to our apartment on Moshe Rabbeinu's yard site. It was my grandmother's yard site. And guess what? That wasn't the plan. So I'm like, okay, so what's so positive about this? This is so disappointing. But we had a banking issue with wiring money. It got wired, but the bank here was creating all sorts of difficulties for us. And we went into, thank you, Linda. We went into the bank and we called our lawyer and had the lawyer talk to the bank person. And in 15 minutes, with a lot of whispering, it was like, okay, it's all done. It's taken care of. The money's in your account. And we've been trying to get it done for like 2 weeks. So all of a sudden it was like, it's over. Like, it's okay. He goes, yeah, the money's in your account. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. So I thought we were supposed to be getting our keys on Tuesday, but instead we were getting our money on Tuesday. Like, okay, that was wonderful. And this was great. And we happened to be near a nice bagel restaurant. And there was a nice coffee and, we got a parking space. And I literally had to stop and just go through my mind of what were all the good things that happened that made yesterday work out exactly as it was supposed to be, rather than being like, I can't believe it, it's so disappointing, another delay, blah, blah, blah. Because whatever we think about, guess what we tend to do? We talk about. And then once we talk about it, we think about it more. And then we tend to dramatize it because who doesn't like a good story? So then we have to embellish it and make it even more dramatic than it actually was. And then we have to give a lot more time of our energy and time and attention. And we've just have created a reality for ourselves. That's reality. How is that reality? Like, well, I'm just being realistic. It's like, that's not real. That's not reality. You created that reality around the situation. So like, okay, so create a different reality. So talk about how we got our money. And we have now a friend. When we first walked into the bank, I saw the look on the banker's face. Let's put it this way. I don't excel at reading body language, but everything about his face said, I'm not going to be helping you. So I was like, this is not going to end well. And then by the end, he was smiling and I said, thank you so much for helping us. I really appreciate it. Now I feel like we actually have a friend there. Maybe that's overstating it, but somebody who is going to be helpful. It's like, I was so excited about that. It's like, got a smile out of him. So all of these things, this is all a choice. And it's not just the big things in our days and in our lives. It is Sham Moach, where my mind is going to be the source of my simcha, and I get to choose it, and I get to create my own story. I get to write my own Megillah. So it's interesting that in Esther and Mordechai wrote the Megillah, and I think it's fascinating that there is no part of the Megillah where Esther adds in how much she suffered as a result of what she did. She doesn't say, and then I had to live the rest of my life with King Ahasuerus, who was a terrible person. She doesn't say any of that. She tells the story, and it's focused on the saving of the Jewish people. And she doesn't go into what the personal cost of it was, except for relating when she has the courage to go into the king at Mordechai's bidding. And she says, and if I perish, I perish. So she was risking her life, but that's not, we only hear about it for a very short, those 2 words. If I perish, I perish. And then she's like, okay, I'm going in. And then she has a plan, and then she starts moving forward. So she could have written the Megillah as a very whole sad song. In fact, we sometimes say when somebody is giving us a whole story about an experience they have had, and they're kind of going on and on and on about it, we say, they told me the whole Megillah. And that means like they went on and on and on telling me all of these details that I wasn't really so interested in. So Esther could have written that Megillah, but the Megillah that she wrote instead was the Megillah that revealed how God's hand worked in mysterious ways throughout the many long years, and how she was able to see Aleph Dar, that God was with her the whole time, even though God's presence was hidden. So the final piece was about the hiddenness. It says, how is it also when we say that, we said at the beginning that Purim and Yom Kippur were similar, that Yom Kippur was about forgiveness for the sin of the golden calf, as well as receiving the second tablets. That's when we got them, was on Yom Kippur. And it was considered a giving of Torah. And Purim was about the forgiveness. And it was just, I forgive you just because I forgive you. And the Jewish people turned themselves around without any strong preparation. But how is it like receiving the Torah? It says on Purim, the Jewish people recommitted, kind of remind me of the confirmation class when we were 15, after your bat mitzvah or bar mitzvah, then you have the confirmation class, and you recommit to the relationship. It says, what was the recommitting? It says, when the Jewish people stood at Mount Sinai, and a couple parshas ago, and God revealed God's presence, whatever that was like. We know it was phenomenal and it was overwhelming. And if you just think about it, if you were standing at Mount Sinai and you saw the light, the thunder, the shofar, and you heard God's voice saying, do you want the Torah? Well, what would your answer be? It would be yes. And it wasn't because God was going to punish you if you didn't. It's just that the clarity of God's reality was so evident that there was no other answer other than to say yes. But that, interestingly, is considered coercion. And so it's said that the Jews were forced, but it's not forced like in a mean way. It was forced because it was so obvious that there was no other choice. It says it's one thing to accept the Torah when God's presence is totally clear. It's a whole other thing to accept the relationship when God's presence is so hidden and you don't see it, and everything looks so mysterious and so bleak and so dark. And then you can see like, oh, God is here. I thought he wasn't, but he is. It says that is considered a recommitting to the Torah, and it's considered coming from a deeper place because it was completely by choice. It was completely by choice. Mount Sinai was not really so much by choice, but Purim was by choice. So we see in the Megillah, God's name doesn't appear, and yet there's all sorts of hints to it. It says, this is why Purim stands as a holiday that is at such a high level, is it represents reality as we know it, which is we see hints here and now, here and there, that God is here, but mostly it seems pretty hidden. Even the name of the Megillah is called Megillat Esther. Megillah literally means to reveal, and Esther means hidden. Megillat Esther is the revelation of that which is hidden. God's presence is hidden. You have to put the pieces together. It's one of the reasons why one of the halachas, unlike the reading of Torah, the reading of Megillah, you have to hear every single word, because the story is spread out over such a long period of time in history that if you don't hear everything and hear how everything is all connected, you can lose the storyline. You can lose the thread that God is there and that God is pulling the strings. When you read about standing at Mount Sinai, it's so dramatic. Nobody has to say, oh, make sure you pay attention to this, otherwise you'll miss something. It's like, no, it's totally in our faces and we wouldn't miss it at all. But for Purim, that we are likely to miss it. So it's very interesting. I don't know. I unfortunately at one point had a rabbi who believed that the entire Purim story was just a myth and a Jewish fairy tale to, I don't know what he was thinking. But anyway, they found in December of this year in Israel, they found a shard that has Achashverosh's father's name on it. Achashverosh's father was Darius, and it says Darius in like the 24th year of Darius. And it's like some sort of a receipt for goods or something. I don't know what it was, but they found it, they've dated it. Darius was Achashverosh's father. Esther and Achashverosh also had a son, and it's that son who was also called Darius, who was the one who gave the Jewish people permission to go back and build the second temple. It says that this was the way that God worked in history, is that God puts Esther in position of power, gives her a son with Achashverosh, the last person in the world she wanted to have as her husband. And yet it's her son who was the one who gives the Jewish people permission to go back to the land of Israel to rebuild the second temple. So not only is God hidden and it's hard to see those little winks, but even in the places where it's revealed, it doesn't always look the way we would want it to look. We would want, if this was a Disney movie, we would want Esther to live happily ever after. But she doesn't live happily ever after. She's happy that she saved the Jewish people. That's the source of her happiness. And that tells us something else about happiness. The Disney happily ever after is one kind of happiness. And I'm not sure exactly how to describe it, but it's not the kind of happiness that we're talking about. Happiness comes from fulfilling our purpose in the world. When I fulfill my life's mission on a day-to-day basis of the mitzvah that is in front of me to do right now, no matter how mundane or how profound it is, that is a source of happiness. Because I'm where I'm supposed to be, doing what I'm supposed to do. Regardless of how it actually makes me feel at some other, I'm going to call it a lower level of happiness. It's like saying it makes me really happy to have a massage. I remember one of the Aish rabbis talked about how some people's definition of religion is that people think that they're supposed to aspire to be comfortable. That like when I can feel comfortable, that's like a good religion. It says that's your dog lying on the rug, like in front of the fireplace. That's comfortable. It says that's not an aspiration. That doesn't do anything. I mean, it's nice for a break, but it's not exactly the goal of our life. So now when the dog goes out to rescue somebody, even if it gets, pummeled, it's like that is actually a place of joy and happiness. That is simcha. So the simcha of Adar is not to look around and say, well, there's nothing really that happiness producing going on in my life. So that's not the question. The source of the happiness comes from doing the right thing in the right way, in the right time, in the right place that fulfills my purpose at that moment. Whether it is something mundane, something profound, doesn't matter. And that should make us happy, because then we are living the life we were meant to live. Now, we would like it to be sweet and we would like it to be comfortable, but I don't know if you've ever noticed for yourselves, doing the right thing, the right time, in the right way, for the right reason, doesn't necessarily coincide with comfort, relaxation, at ease, and pleasantness. Those things don't necessarily go together. So if you ask anybody who's ever set a goal, an academic goal, a physical goal, and anything kind of a goal of like, what did it take to make that happen that is giving you such happiness? People were making an effort. I remember growing up, I had a girlfriend who was an ice skater. We grew up in Littleton, and she skated at the University of Denver at the skating rink there. And she got up at 5 o'clock in the morning every morning, and her mother drove her into Denver to go practice ice skating, and then drove her back to then come to school. And I'm like, I would never do that, but I wasn't an ice skater. So that didn't, I'm like, well, she certainly wasn't comfortable. She had to get up out of her warm bed, go do that, get less sleep than everybody else, be out there exercising. She was probably tired when she got to school, but she was a fabulous ice skater because that was what she was meant to be. I mean, I don't know if that's what she was meant to be doing. That's what she chose to be doing to express herself in the world. So when we choose and recognize what our mission is, then we can be happy, even if the circumstances, somebody else looking at us would say like, that's miserable. So we see that Mordecai tells Esther this as well. When the threat comes, the decree against the Jewish people, and Mordecai tells Esther, you need to go to Ahasuerus, and she says, I can't, I'll be killed. You can't go if you haven't been called. And then he tells her basically, if you don't do this, basically you will have forfeited your reason for being in this world. And who knows, that's the quote from Megillah, and who knows if it wasn't just for this very moment that you have been in the king's harem this entire time. You can't not do it. And then she recognizes that reality and she does it and gives it her best shot. Not knowing, of course, as we know how the story ends, she did not know how it was going to end. And she thought she was going to be killed. So hopefully we are not asked to do things at that level, but we should know that the greatness that will truly make us happy comes from doing the right thing in the right way, at the right time, in the right place, and for the right reason. And that will be a source of much happiness. Visham, there is the moach. That's where I put my mind. And that place I can experience true happiness. This means a person can be happy, God forbid, sitting Shiva. It means they can be happy being in a hospital room. It means they can be happy in the unemployment line. It means they can be happy dealing with any of life's challenges. Because the only thing they have to ask themselves is, am I doing the right thing at the right time, in the right way, for the right reason? And when that happens, I can then be happy. So we hope that our happiness of Adar comes along with lots of sweetness, lots of pleasure, lots of enjoyment, laughter, and that we can really have a good time and that we can appreciate everything that the month of Adar has to teach us, not just for the holiday of Purim, but has to teach us and how we can live our lives for the entire year. So now we can see, what is Purim compared to Yom Kippur? Yom Kippur is like Purim. It kind of gets this far, but not as high up as Purim. To be able to say, I'm sorry, I hurt you, I'm sorry, I did something wrong, please forgive me, is definitely one level. But to say, how can I make our relationship even better? That is taking it to the next level. Having the simcha of my life of knowing that I'm doing the right thing, the right time, in the right way, fulfilling my destiny at any particular moment, that is a source of my happiness. So when we come to that, then we recognize that we can find God's presence in hidden places and be able to see it, because our litmus test won't be, well, like if it was like Mount Sinai and it was in my face, then I would be good. It's like, if it was like that, not that it doesn't count, but it's not nearly as good as saying, I see you, infinite creator of the universe, who loves me unconditionally for who I am, and that I can love other people for who they are. Purim Day is the one day that if somebody asks us for tzedakah, we're not supposed to investigate to find out if they're a worthy cause or not. The rest of the days of the year, you're supposed to give tzedakah wisely and carefully. But on Purim is like, if you asked me, I'm giving it to you. Because we want God to say the same thing to me. If I ask for something, don't look at my record. Just say, it's like, I just love you. And so I'm going to just give you whatever it is that you want. This is a time for everybody needs to know this. The month of Adar, and especially on Purim, is an incredibly auspicious time to pray, to ask for whatever it is that you need and that you want to have success for yourself, for the people you love, for the Jewish people, for the entire world. It says the gates of heaven are open and the criteria for having prayers answered. There's no prerequisites. There's no prerequisites. Like, we just show up for Purim. Yom Kippur is like, what were you doing for the past 40 days before Yom Kippur got started? But on Purim, it's like, just come. Come as you are. It's a come as you are party. And who knows, maybe that's part of a costume. Even if we're all covered up with all sorts of stuff, you know, am I a monster? Am I a villain? I don't care who we are, that God wants to be with us and to have us in God's life. Because Aleph Dar, Hashem is dwelling with us and inside each and every one of us, and doesn't leave the tree, just like the etrog doesn't leave. God is with the Jewish people. The holiday of Purim is the only holiday that was celebrated in exile, because it was created in Persia, in Shushan. So it is certainly the holiday for us, since all of us are in exile. Even those of us who are in the land of Israel are still in exile, because the world is not perfected yet. We still have a ways to go. It says, and even when Mashiach comes, Messiah comes, that Purim will still be celebrated because of its intrinsic value and what it stands for as far as the relationship between us and God and us and other people. So again, we will not have class next Wednesday, as it will be Shushan Purim, but I want to wish you a very happy, meaningful Purim. It should be fun. It should be enjoyable. It should give you all sorts of simcha. And hopefully we can find ourselves that all the decrees that are against the Jewish people for anything negative should all be annulled. They should all be turned over, and only goodness and good health and peace and happiness should come to us as individuals, our families, our communities, and the entire Jewish people. So I wish you a Chag Purim Sameach, and we will return in 2 weeks. I'll look forward to seeing you all. And if anyone has any questions or anything about Purim and wants to ask, please do. I'm happy to stay on.
Ellyn, I have a question.
Sure, Patricia, hello. Yes.
So what are you going to be doing? Like, do you have, have you found your home, your shul? Are you going to go to a party? What are you doing?
Such a good question. So if you live in Jerusalem, you celebrate Purim on Tuesday night, Wednesday. Everybody else is celebrating Monday night, Tuesday. So everybody's fasts on Monday. So Monday is the fast day. And then Monday night is I always get so confused. Okay, hold on, I don't have my calendar right here. Okay. Monday is the fast. Monday night is the night Megillah reading. And Tuesday, the 7th, is the morning Megillah reading, because you need to hear it twice, and that at night and in the morning. And then people who live outside of Jerusalem have their Seudah. They have their feast on Tuesday during the day. If you live in if you live in Jerusalem, you hear the Megillah, your night reading is Tuesday night, and you hear your morning reading on Wednesday, and you have your feast on Wednesday afternoon. So what we're going to do, this is kind of funny, somebody coined this term. We're going to have a pseudo Seudah. A Seudah means a festive meal. We're going to go out to Benjamin and Dahlia, who do not live in Jerusalem. We're going to go out to them for their Seudah on Tuesday, so we can see our grandchildren in their costumes. So we'll be part of that. Then we'll drive back to Jerusalem to get here before the Megillah reading time, Tuesday night for us. And then on Wednesday, we'll go to hear the Megillah reading in the morning. And then we're having friends over for a Seudah here at our apartment. So it's like it'll be like a 3-day thing. So that's what we're doing. And it's this, as like I did in my video, the stores are just filled with everything Purim. There's costumes all over, and gift bags and candy and little miniature wines. You know, before I would complain, like, I can't even find what I want. now I'm like, how do people make a decision? There's so much stuff. There's like infinite stuff for Purim. And then the day after Purim, all of it will be gone, and there'll be cleaning supplies that will be put out in the store to get ready, start getting ready for Pesach. And then everybody's like, why do I have all this candy in my house that I don't need? So it's very funny. So that's what we're going to be doing. And we have found, we've been going to a synagogue that's just about a 10-minute walk. For those of you who know me, a 10-minute walk is like a pure joy, since in Denver, we had a half-hour walk to shul. So 10 minutes, we walk to shul. And there's mostly a lot of English-speaking people. The services, of course, are in Hebrew, and the rabbi gives his Devar Torah in Hebrew, but then he repeats it after services are over. He gives it in English so that we can, people can understand or fill in whatever they missed from the main part. So we'll go there for the Megillah readings in the evening and in the morning. And then our kids told us, don't even try to drive in Jerusalem on Jerusalem Purim Day, because the streets are completely congested from everybody driving around delivering shalach manas to people. So just walk. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to walk. Thank you. So yeah, that's our plan. So we haven't discussed costumes yet. I'm not sure what we're doing for costumes, but we'll be doing the rest of it, of eating and drinking. Drinking me. I'll have like a little bit of whatever. What's it called? Moscato. That's my drink. We have friends here who are into the wine here in Israel. They go on wine tours and wine testings. And I'm like, it sounds beautiful, but it has no meaning for me. I like something bubbly that tastes like soda. So it's like, it's going to be a waste, but there's incredible wines here. So the grocery stores all sell wine, even like a little Marcolet, everything sells wine, just on a regular basis, because people need wine for Shabbos and for the holidays. So that's just like a given that's available. It's pretty wild. So yes, but I really highly recommend transcending the misperception that Purim is a children's holiday, and that if you don't have young children around or no young children or something, that it's not really for you. That this is an adult holiday. And as I said, it's everyone who goes to Yom Kippur service should certainly be in the synagogue for Purim, because that's the highest holiday that there is out of all of them.
Thank you. That's
sure.
Have a great time.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody. Enjoy. And it's so nice to see you all. And I'll look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks. And Susan Burst, I wanted to ask you, are you back in the United States? Or are you?
Oh, yes. Yes. Back.
Okay. How is Japan?
Fabulous.
Oh,
Incredible.
good. You know,
Yes.
Rabbi Friedman is in Japan. The rabbi who used to be the rabbi at the Dot Minyan, because he's a chaplain in the Air National Guard, and he's been stationed there. He's stationed in Japan.
Really? Oh, I didn't know
For a
that.
year.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh,
Oh.
I did not know that.
Lucky
Yeah.
him.
Yeah. So he's
Highly
having
recommend it.
Yeah, that's great. I'm so glad you got to go.
We were all there together, the whole family, for part of it. Yeah.
So
It
nice.
was very special.
Wonderful. That's
And
great.
beautiful. It's a beautiful country.
I am sure. I remember seeing pictures. I had a friend who was an exchange student there. It was pretty amazing.
I really
Hashem
focused
created a
on-
beautiful world.
Yes, the gardens there are God's creation with man. Beautiful.
Isn't it something? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. All right, everybody, enjoy your Purim.
Ellen,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
when you were talking about Botanic Gardens, Rabbi
Yes.
Black has been a board member on the Botanic Gardens, and so
oh,
he gets to go and help harvest the
Oh.
game and a couple of different times, and then he posted on Facebook, but he and the rest of the clergy went, and he was holding this etrog that was, and he held it
It's
up
like as big
next
as your
to-
face.
Yeah, he held it up right
Yeah.
next to Cantor Sachs and said, it's as big as her head.
Yes, I actually had someone took my picture next to the tree, and with it is like, it's as big as my head. So like, you can't really use it for sukkahs
Right.
because you can't hold it and the other things with it. It's like, no, you can't.
Yeah.
But it is, I mean, it's gigantic. That's so cool that he's on the board there.
Yeah.
Great. Such a cool fruit. Really interesting.
I have
Yeah.
a picture of me at the Machane Yehuda holding
Uh-huh.
a etrog the size of a football.
Oh,
Literally. At
I
the
believe
juice
it.
bar on Agrippa.
oh, oh, yeah.
The
Yep,
etrog
it's
man.
pretty-
Yeah, he
Yes.
juices and he'll put a chunk of etrog in your juice.
There you go. Yeah, because they're too big to use for sukkah. So then they go in to make other things like etrog liqueur and etrog juices. And somebody one time gave us etrog liqueur, but to me, it honestly kind of tasted like pledge dusting, the lemon flavored one. So it's like, I don't think I really like this so much, but it's an incredible fruit. And yeah, and its message is pre-Eitz Hadar. This is the fruit that stays with you, literally. So, all right, everybody enjoy. It's so good to see you all, and I'll look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks. And then we'll just have a few more classes because then I'll be, God willing, going to Florida. So, but we'll go until the end of March.
I didn't catch when you're
Hot
moving
works,
into your
Samaya.
apartment, Ellen.
I'm sorry, Valerie.
I didn't catch when you said you were going to move into your apartment or your house.
We won't be moving into our apartment until the end of May.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah, so we have, because construction here is, the apartment is constructed, but now we had hired somebody who designed and is going to put in the kitchen for us and the closets and a pergola and do all that. So it's kind of there's tiling on the floors and the walls are there, and the bathtub and shower and all that stuff are there, but everything else needs to be put in. So
And the workers
gonna-
are Israeli Jews, not Israeli Arabs, right?
no, they are whoever does the best work. Our designer uses both, and they do a great job for him, and we take whoever is responsible and works well. It's
Because,
actually funny.
My friend Bruce Brill, he guards Arab workers because what they do, I don't mean to be negative, I just want to give you a warning. They'll do things like pour cement down the drain. So just be careful. Make sure you've got a shomer to guard if you do have Arab workers.
Yes, that is accurate. That has happened to several people we know, including our children and my sister. And the contractor works with people who are reliable and who don't do that. And
Good. You hear
everybody's,
that?
yeah, no, it's a big problem. It's a very big problem. There's they did exactly that. They poured concrete down the pipes, and the house flooded the first time they used the bathroom. The house flooded. And in our kids' apartment that they had bought, they smashed the gas pipes lines under the tile. And so all the tile had to be ripped out and new gas lines put in. So yeah, there is that kind of stuff that happens, but our person is a very experienced designer and project manager. So he has good people working for him, but it's a sad thing. Anyway,
Yeah, well, I'm glad
we
to
hope
hear
to have
that.
this.
My friend
we have-
Bruce Brill, he guards, like I said, he guards Arab workers that are building homes. He just stands there with
Yes.
his gun and he guards them.
Okay, well, whatever, yeah, people should do whatever they need to do. And it's, as I said, our person hires people who are reliable and good. And that's what we're hoping for in the best of situations everywhere.
Good.
But we're looking forward to being there and moving in. And I'm just excited, God willing, to get our keys on Sunday. So
Great.
that will be very very fun. And then we are, yes, heading to Florida right after Passover. So that will be, and we're working on that too. So,
Nice.
all right, ladies, have a wonderful Purim and have a very good Shabbos. And I'll look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Okay, Chag Sameach, take care. Give regards. Bye-bye.